Okay, let's start with a big question. When did the story of the United States really begin? Most of us, we instinctively point to 1492, right? Columbus. But what if we told you that date is actually thousands of years after the first chapters were written? That's exactly what we're diving into today. This whole deep dive is about exploring the incredibly rich, complex history of North America before any Europeans arrived. We've gathered some truly fascinating sources. They paint this vivid picture of thriving civilizations, amazing innovations, a continent already profoundly shaped long, long before 1492. So our mission here is really to illuminate that depth, that sophistication for you. We want you to see American history through a completely new lens.
Absolutely. And what's so transformative, I think, about understanding this earlier history is how it fundamentally redefines what American history even means. It shows this foundation built on millennia of diverse cultures, real ingenuity. It challenges that old idea, that this land was somehow empty or undeveloped before Europeans. So today, yeah, you'll uncover some surprising truths, things about like the size of ancient cities, how sophisticated their governance was, and how these pre-Columbian societies, well, they still echo today in our landscape, even in political ideas.
Okay, let's unpack that then. Our journey starts way, way earlier than the 15th century, thousands of years earlier. So where did the sources, the archaeology, suggest the story of North America's first people really began?
Well, the overwhelming consensus among archaeologists now points to the first people arriving from Asia. They crossed a landmass we call the Bering Land Bridge, or Beringia.
Thuringia, right?
Exactly. This happened during the last ice age, roughly between maybe 15,000 and 20,000 years ago. It was at a time when sea levels were much, much lower. So it revealed this wide corridor of land connecting what's now Siberia and Alaska.
Just imagine that journey. I mean, the scale of it. It wasn't just a quick walk, was it? It was a real determined movement into a totally unknown world.
Completely. And what's remarkable, the evidence suggests these weren't just, a few scattered groups. These early pioneers, they eventually spread southward, not all at once, but over thousands of years, gradually populating the entire continent.
Wow. So from these initial migrations, hundreds of distinct cultures emerged.
Hundreds, each adapting, innovating, figuring out how to thrive in incredibly diverse environments. From Arctic tundra to lush river valleys, arid deserts,
Yeah.
everywhere.
That's amazing.
Which leads us to a really crucial question. What did these advanced societies actually look like across the continent before Europeans ever set foot here? Because look, before 1492, North America was anything but empty wilderness. It was this vibrant tapestry, really dynamic civilizations. They had established cities, extensive trade networks, really developed farming, complex spiritual systems, social structures.
It's a totally different mental picture, isn't it, than the one we often get?
It absolutely is. It often gets overlooked.
Okay, so let's take everyone on a quick tour then, across the continent. Let's highlight some of these major Native American cultures and maybe pull out a few surprising facts our sources bring up. Where should we start? Maybe the eastern woodlands.
Yeah, good place to start. The eastern woodlands, especially the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys. This is where ancient peoples built these truly massive earthwork cities, these mound cities.
Like Cahokia, near modern St. Louis.
Exactly. Cahokia is maybe the most famous example, probably one of the greatest archaeological sites in North America, period. It was this bustling metropolis, active roughly between, say, 1050 and 1350 CE.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting. The size.
Oh, the scale is genuinely astounding. At its peak, estimates suggest Cahokia had a population of over 40,000 people, maybe more.
40,000. How does that compare to, say, Europe at the time?
Well, get this. At the same time, London's population was likely smaller.
Wow. Okay, that really reframes things. This wasn't just a village.
Not at all. It was a complex urban center, highly organized leadership, vast public plazas, these monumental earthen mounds, some reaching over 100 feet tall.
Sure.
And they supported this with sophisticated agriculture, relying heavily on maize, beans, squash, the Three Sisters,
Right.
which let them sustain such a dense population.
Incredible. Okay, that scale alone should make us rethink things. Now, let's shift. Let's go southwest to what's now Arizona and New Mexico. We find the Ancestral Puebloans there, right? Sometimes called the Anasazi.
That's right. And when you think of them, you probably picture those iconic cliff dwellings, like at Mesa Verde,
Yeah, built right into the cliffs.
or those expansive multi-story structures you see in Chaco Canyon. Really impressive architecture.
What stands out about them? Their ingenuity.
Definitely their ingenuity, especially in adapting to that challenging desert environment. They were master farmers. They developed these really sophisticated irrigation systems to grow crops in pretty arid conditions.
Yeah.
That took incredible knowledge.
So not just architecture, but complex engineering too.
Exactly. And their innovations didn't stop there. They made stunning pottery, intricate weaving, and they had a deep understanding of astronomy. They actually aligned some of their major buildings with celestial events. It shows this advanced grasp of the cosmos.
Okay, so moving further west now to the Pacific coast. Washington, Oregon, British Columbia area. The Pacific Northwest peoples, a completely different environment, right?
Totally different. And that environment, incredibly rich in resources, especially salmon, profoundly shaped their culture.
How so? What did that look like?
Well, you see it in their large, sturdy wooden houses, plank houses, and of course their famous, intricately carved totem poles.
Right, the totem poles are iconic.
And their societies were often quite hierarchical. They had powerful chiefs, and they practiced these elaborate ceremonies called potlatches.
Potlatches. Those were the gift-giving feasts.
Yeah, essentially grand public gift-giving feasts, but they were much more than just parties. Potlatches were about redistributing wealth, reinforcing social status, cementing alliances, marking big life events. It was a really sophisticated way to maintain social order and community bonds, all fueled by that natural abundance.
Interesting. Okay, let's move inland a bit to the northeast. The Iroquois and Algonquin peoples.
And here, the Iroquois Confederacy, or the Haudenosaunee, really stands out.
Haudenosaunee, meaning people of the Longhouse?
Exactly. A powerful, influential alliance of nations. The Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. Later, the Tuscarora joined too.
And what's particularly notable about them?
What's truly remarkable about the Haudenosaunee is their highly developed system of democratic governance. It was codified in their Great Law of Peace.
The Great Law of Peace.
Yeah. And if we connect this to the bigger picture of political thought, some historians suggest their structure actually influenced the U.S. Constitution.
Really? How so?
Well, ideas like consensus building, representative government, checks and balances, emphasis on peace, there are parallels. The really profound insight here is that maybe the seeds of modern democratic thought weren't solely European. They might have deep roots in indigenous American ingenuity.
That is a powerful idea. It challenges the whole narrative we usually hear, doesn't it?
It fundamentally does.
Yeah.
It suggests that the origins of American democracy are more complex and more inclusive than we often assume.
Wow. Okay, one more quick stop on our tour. The Great Plains.
Right, the Great Plains. Our sources often highlight their nomadic cultures, primarily focused on hunting buffalo. That was central to their life.
But there's a common misconception here, isn't there? About horses.
Yes, absolutely crucial clarification. Before 1492, horses were not present in the Americas.
They weren't. I always picture plains culture with horses.
Well, they had actually disappeared from North America way back after the Ice Age. They were only reintroduced centuries later by Europeans, mainly the Spanish.
Ah.
So that iconic image we have, the mounted plains warrior hunting buffalo, that came much, much later. The arrival of the horse completely transformed their way of life, but that transformation happened after 1492.
Good clarification. So it's becoming really clear just how diverse and developed these North American societies were. But you mentioned connections. These cultures weren't totally isolated, were they? What about influences from further south?
Absolutely not isolated. And you're right, we can't really get the full picture without looking just beyond today's U.S. borders down into Mesoamerica. We absolutely have to acknowledge the significant influence of Mesoamerican civilizations like the Maya and the Aztec in what's now Mexico and Central America.
How did their influence reach north?
Through trade, mainly through extensive trade networks moving northward. And through that trade, they introduced crucial things. Most importantly, corn, or maize.
Corn. That seems so basic, but was it really that transformative?
Oh, profoundly transformative. This single crop, maize, revolutionized Native American agriculture across almost the entire continent. Its arrival allowed for more settled communities. It fueled significant population growth. It basically provided the foundational food source that powered the development of many of the complex societies we've just been talking about.
So maize from Mesoamerica was a key ingredient for places like Cahokia, for the Ancestral Puebloans.
They're very likely, yes. It spread far and wide, adapted to different climates. It was a game changer.
Okay, so we've toured these incredible cultures, bustling cities, sophisticated alliances, amazing adaptations. If we step back, what are the sort of overarching themes? What core principles of ingenuity really stand out across these diverse societies?
That's a great question. Stepping back, what you see is this remarkable pattern of, let's call it, Adaptive genius. It wasn't just one area. Innovation was everywhere, deeply ingrained. Take agriculture, for instance. It wasn't just planting corn. It was a systematic understanding of how plants work together. The three sisters, corn, beans, squash, grown together. That's ecological synergy. It's sustainable farming, adapted perfectly to local conditions. It's basically ecological engineering.
Right, they support each other.
Exactly. Then look at architecture. The sheer variety is stunning. Massive earthen mounds, multi-story cliff dwellings, sturdy longhouses, earth lodges. It shows this incredible mastery of local materials and environments. These weren't just shelters. They were sophisticated, climate-adapted designs supporting complex social life.
And the trade networks you mentioned.
Yeah, these weren't simple barter systems. They were incredibly vast, complex economic networks. Think about items like obsidian from the Rockies, shells from the Gulf Coast, copper from the Great Lakes, turquoise from the Southwest, moving thousands of miles.
That requires some serious organization.
Absolutely. Logistics, trust, diplomacy, intercommunity relationships across different languages and cultures. It was sophisticated stuff.
And then governance. We touched on the Iroquois.
Right. And beyond the Iroquois Confederacy, you see various forms of councils, chiefdoms, systems for managing large groups, resolving disputes, maintaining peace, making decisions. These were highly evolved social contracts. They allowed these societies to function and often flourish for centuries.
It wasn't chaos, it was organized.
Far from it. And finally, their spirituality. It wasn't separate from daily life. It was deeply integrated into everything. It reflected these profound connections to the natural world, to the cosmos, expressed through rich oral traditions, sacred stories, complex rituals, guiding their understanding of the world and their place in it.
It's truly remarkable. Through all these examples, you see this consistent thread of human ingenuity, adaptation, resilience. So by 1492, this land, the land that would become the U.S., it was already home to millions of people living in thriving, dynamic, complex societies, each with its own unique culture, its own innovations.
And this just hammers home that crucial point. These cultures were unequivocally not primitive. That's such an outdated and, frankly, disrespectful term. They had sophisticated cities, extensive trade, advanced farming, complex governance, challenging any simplistic narrative of an untouched wilderness waiting for Europeans.
Of course, we have to acknowledge what came next. The arrival of Europeans did profoundly disrupt this world. It led to devastating diseases that wiped out huge populations, systematic colonization, the forced displacement of native peoples and cultures. That's a critical, tragic part of the story that followed 1492.
Absolutely critical to acknowledge. The scale of that disruption was immense. But, and this is important if we connect this to the bigger picture today, Native American influence remains incredibly strong, often unacknowledged, but it's there.
How so? Where do we see it?
Well, think about it. It's present in countless place names all across the continent, states, rivers, cities. It's in agricultural crops and practices that still persist. And as we discussed, arguably, it's even in the democratic ideas that help shape the very foundation of the United States.
So their legacy is still here, woven into the fabric of American identity and history.
Deeply woven in. Whether it's always recognized or not, it's fundamental.
So let's bring it all home then. The making of the U.S. It really didn't just start in 1492. It began thousands and thousands of years earlier. Shaped profoundly by these Native American civilizations, their influence on the land, the culture, maybe even the political ideas of what would eventually become the United States. This deep history, it's an absolutely essential foundational chapter we need to understand.
And thinking about all this, it raises an important question maybe for you, our listener, to consider. How does understanding these millennia of deep history, these vast, complex societies that existed before 1492, how does that change your personal connection to and understanding of this land and this nation we call the United States today?
That is something truly profound to ponder as you look at your own surroundings, reflect on the layers of history right beneath your feet. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive. We really hope you carry this new perspective forward.